I'm going to preview the Baylor versus Utah women's basketball game. This should be a top 20 showdown. It's on November 14th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPN Plus. And too bad it's not like on regular TV like ESPN, ESPN2, or ESPNU. Just the same names and examples, but that's besides the point in all of this. And I will go over like the last year's stats on some of the players, and I will also mention one player that has played a lot of minutes despite being a freshman too. By the way, and I will put the stats in the description below so y'all can see it. First of all, Alyssa Peely, number 35, 6'2" forward. That's a senior. 20.7 points per game, 29 for 68 on threes, 114, 143 on free throws, 5.6 rebounds per game, 2.3 turnovers per game, 1 steal per game, 0.7 blocks per game, 2.3 fouls per game. Gianna Neepkins, number K-N-E-E-N-K-E-N-S, number 5, 5'11" guard. That's a senior. Junior. 15.3 points per game. And this is last year's stats, by the way, on all this. 71 for 168 on threes, 98 for 118 on free throws, 5.2 rebounds per game, 2.1 assists per game, 1.6 turnovers per game, 0.9 steals per game, 2.4 fouls per game. Jenna Johnson, number 22, 6'2" forward. That's a junior. 11.9 points per game, 20 for 76 on threes, 84 for 115 on free throws, 4.9 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, 1.7 turnovers per game, 0.7 steals per game, 2 fouls per game. And the next player is like a player from Wisconsin from last year that's coming off the bench now, but that's besides the point. And Mattison Wilke, Matyson Wilke, number 23, 5'10" guard. That's a sophomore. 11.8 points per game, 61 for 175 on threes, 32 for 37 on free throws, 3.9 rebounds per game, 2.2 assists per game, 1.8 turnovers per game, 1.9 steals per game, 2.6 fouls per game. Kennedy McQueen is the next player to keep an eye on. Number 24, 5'10" guard. That's a junior. 9.1 points per game, 59 for 162 on threes, 46 for 60 on free throws, 3.5 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists per game, 1.3 turns per game, 1.1 steals per game, 1.2 fouls per game. Isabel Palmer used to be at Texas, believe it or not. That's the next player to keep an eye on. Number 1, 5'9" guard. That's a senior. 7.9 points per game, 26 for 79 on threes. Though she hit a lot of threes last game, so keep that in mind. 64 for 74 on free throws, 2.5 rebounds per game, 2.8 assists per game, 1.8 turnovers per game, 1.9 fouls per game. Deasia Young, number 34, 5'11" forward. That's a senior. 6 points per game, 28 for 86 on threes, 45 for 61 on free throws, 2.3 rebounds per game, 1.5 turnovers per game, 0.9 steals per game, 2 fouls per game. Samantha Crisp, number 44, 6'2" forward. That's a sophomore. 5.6 points per game, 5 for 23 on threes, 39 for 44 on free throws, 3.8 rebounds per game, 1.8 turns per game, and 1.8 fouls per game. But that was at Boston University, so gotta keep that in mind. Then Lonnie White, number 3, 5'11" guard. That's a sophomore. 3.3 points per game, 12 for 27 on threes, 11 for 17 on free throws, 0.6 turns per game, 0.9 fouls per game. Ines Vieira, number 2, 5'6" guard. That's a junior. 2.6 points per game, 11 for 46 on threes, 27 for 32 on free throws, 2.2 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, 1.3 turns per game, 0.8 steals per game, 1.8 fouls per game. Alyssa Blunt, but the thing about that last player, she did not play that much at BYU, so I'm not going to mention that because she's not played this year so far. But I know that Utah has a 6'8" center on their team that returns from last year after redshirting, but she didn't And she only played like 3 minutes last game. So and let me go look at the player's name. So I'm not going to mention the BYU player at all because she did not play at BYU. Nor she's played this. Actually, she's played this year, but only 3 minutes. So yeah, but if you want to know the BYU player, it's Alyssa Blanc, number 15, 6'2" forward. That's a sophomore. But like I said, based on the playing time, she's not been playing a lot of minutes this year for Utah. When you look at it, only like 2.5 minutes, and same thing goes for that 6'8" forward. Center that I did not mention her name at all. So and Nene, so that's 6 foot number 25, 6'8" center. But so pretty much everybody on their team is like 6'3" or below, or even 6'2" or below in terms of size here. But I will say Utah does play one freshman, and she does average 8.5 points per game. Granted, it's in 2 games, I know. And 6.5 rebounds per game, and 2 turnovers per game, 1 block per game. 2 for 5 on free throws, and 1 for 4 on threes, and 2 fouls per game. Just take that for what it's worth. Number 20, 6'1" forward. That's a freshman, and Reese Ross. Yeah, as you could tell, they bring back a lot. And then they added a good freshman that's playing a lot of minutes. And to be exact, 16 minutes per game. So, yeah. They're really... And they do return all 5 starters from a year ago. So, yeah, that's... Across the board, you got to limit your foul trouble as much as possible while putting them in foul trouble. Especially like Peely. She's a mismatch nightmare. She can be. She could score anywhere on the court. I'm just saying that as to be truthful. She could shoot free throws pretty good. She could shoot threes and post up. Inside of twos. So yeah, I'm just saying that, and she's a double machine, and granted, you gotta get on defensively, get on the shooters, contain the slashers. You need to limit Peely as much as possible, but if nothing else, try to limit the other options. And you gotta play solid defense and try to take some charges. Of course, limit the offensive rebounds. And of course, rebound in general, you gotta win the rebounding battle. You gotta force turnovers, and you gotta limit the points off turnovers, the points in the paint, and points from the free throw line and the 3-point line as well. You don't want to lose the free throw line battle necessarily, and it would be helpful to have some steals and you gotta limit the transition points. That's the whole truth and all this. And so yeah, that's the main things. And you gotta make adjustments on the fly defensively, because I know in that first game we let that one player get going on threes, but after that she didn't shoot that much from 3 anymore from Southern. So I'm just saying that. And granted, they don't have a lot of film on us, but in terms of like current players that are here, that were not even there last year or played 100 minutes or less, or none at all, in Dre Edwards. But this is a big game for Dre Edwards, because remember, she's playing against a former team in Utah. That's where she initially came from. So it's before Kentucky. So yeah, you gotta take some charges if you can. I know it's gonna be hard with the block charge rule being changed and all, and you gotta get into passing lanes. So the good news is, at least they don't have a lot of size. It's just you got to find a way to rebound the ball and keep them off the glass offensively. And of course, Utah's on offense. Now on offense for Baylor, You got to have crisp passing. You got to take care of the ball. You got to get some transition points, points in the paint, or get some paint touches. Whether it's like a throw it to the post, or just drive and then get a better shot and try to get the best shot as possible. And this is going to be interesting how we're going to play against them. And you got to make your threes count. I mean, in this game, you got to make them. And it would really be helpful. And try to get Utah in foul trouble. Like, especially with, like, Peely or any of these bigger players, like I mentioned, from last year. And you got to make adjustments on the fly. And you got to have good screening. I mean, you don't want to get called for you don't want to get called for 3 seconds in the lane sometimes. That's the thing. We don't want that to happen. Nor turn the ball over. But if you're going to have a turnover, have a dead ball and not a live ball. That's the truth. But at the same time, you don't want to have turnovers in general. You got to make your free throws count. Because in games like this, that could be the ultimate difference. And you got to take good shots. I mean, and try to get Utah uncomfortable on offense. That's what I forgot to mention on defense. Making them uncomfortable. And try to be one step ahead of Utah's defense in this game. If you can, of course, like you got to execute your plays and everything. So, yeah, and got to get the rebounds and get some putbacks, like second chance points. Whether it's like you got like an and one situation when you get fouled on the shot, or just you get the rebound and you put it back in, or even kick it out for a 3 or mid-range jump shot. And of course, make your mid-range jump shots. That will be helpful. And this is a big game for us because this is the best test we're going to play against in the non-con. I'm going to tell you that up front. No offense to Oregon or Miami, Florida, or any of those teams. Nothing compares to them to Utah. I'm just telling the truth. It would be helpful if Dre Edwards step up. Hopefully Asia Black was more aggressive offensively in this game. Of course, Darion Little-Page Buggs needs to step up. Yaya Felder off the bench. Jada Walker as a starter. Sarah Andrews, which I know she's been dealing with like minutes limitation. So I'm just telling you that as an FYI on that. Because that's what's happened in both the regular season, the practice game that we had against Hardin Simmons, and then the last game against Southern. Because I expect more minutes. You got to expect more minutes for Dre Edwards. It would really be helpful to have like Madison Bartley step up too, off the bench. And granted, we could change the starters because of the matchup. But you get the whole point and all that and everything, of course. Like I said, Yaya Felder. If Genevieve Guybeek has to play, she's got to step up and make plays. Of course, I know she might not play a lot of minutes, but you get the whole point. And Bella Fauntleroy as well. I'm just naming those examples. And if Letty Vascolones plays, just get some size in there. Yeah, that's the thing. And I don't know how many minutes she's going to really play. And all this, and we're gonna know where we're at, and hopefully Danae Fritz could step up too, but she was limited in minutes in both the practice game and this one, so I wonder if she's banged up. I don't have a clue, but I hope she's not as banged up now, because 8 days of no games here. I'm just telling you that much. I mean, you gotta have, like, if nothing else, you gotta have the other players step up. And I know this is an adjustment period for a lot of newcomers, even Asia Blackwell, because she is in a different role now. And not only that, she's coming off of a year as she played less than 100 minutes. Of course, Dre Edwards. She didn't even play last year because of the coach didn't want to sign the waiver. And I know she was at 2 other schools, 4-year schools. So, yeah, that's the thing. And we got to play our hair on fire for this game. And I'm sure Nick and Colin staff are looking at the film, and I already looked at it prior to this game. I have no doubt, even after the Southern game. I mean, I'm just telling the truth. You got to try to take advantage of every mistake by Utah, and you got to exploit the weaknesses for Utah while eliminating their strengths as much as possible. And this is a team in Utah that could have gone to the Final Four last year. If they would have beat LSU and they had they missed 2 free throws from an 80% shooter, including an air ball, and one of them, if make one of those, you go to overtime. At the time, potentially, because then LSU got the foul and they made 2 free throws. But you get the whole point. They're a good team, and they return a lot from that team. And that team, if they would have beat LSU, the eventual champs, in the Sweet 16, they're going to play Miami, Florida next, and I think they would have beat them. Then they would automatically play in the Final Four. It's not because Miami, Florida was that bad. I just think Utah is a totally different animal, and they probably would have won that game, but it's a who knows at this point. But you get the whole point. This team for Utah is loaded, and they return back a lot. They're favored to win the Pac-12 this year. So let's not really play nothing to lose. It's just you got to be fired up. You got to come out with energy from the jump and try to win every dead ball. I mean, every time there is a break in the action, try to. And you try to win the majority of the quarters as much as possible, and just keep fighting in this game. And don't back down to Utah only because they're number 5 possibly, or somewhere in the top 5. I mean, that's the truth. You can't just look at the jerseys and be intimidated. You got to come out with confidence and do what like Colorado, number 20 Colorado did to number 1 LSU. I mean, no pressure on us. It's on them. And we need to go out there and protect our home floor. And I'm sure they are fired up for this game. The team is. So anyways, if you like this content, like and subscribe, and see you guys later. On the road to 600 subscribers. Of course, the ultimate goal is 1,000 or more, so we can make money off this. Of course, liking the video, commenting the video really helps the YouTube algorithm, so more people can see it. Sharing the video does help too. And if you're watching and not subscribed, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well. It's free to do both of those things. That's all.